Some of Ford's wildest machines never saw the showroom floor, not because they weren't powerful, but because they were too dangerous, too fast, or too controversial to release. Hidden in archives and whispered about in garages, these banned cars hold untold stories. Today, we reveal Ford's 8 most forbidden creations. Top 1, 1970 Mercury Cougar, Eliminator Boss 429 prototype. In 1970, Mercury wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with its Mustang cousin in the muscle wars. The dream car? A Cougar Eliminator fitted with Ford's most menacing engine, the Boss 429. Known internally as the Boss 9, this motor was born for NASCAR's supremacy, with enormous cylinder heads and race-bred hardware. Dropping it into Mercury's refined Cougar platform was daring, but it worked. Prototypes were built, blending luxury muscle with brutal horsepower. Under the hood, the 429 cubic inch V8 produced an underrated 375 horsepower, though insiders knew output approached 500. With only a handful of test cars made, the concept was destined to remain a ghost. Ford executives, fearing overlap with the Mustang Boss 429 and worried about production costs, killed the project before customers could even dream of ordering one. To this day, the Eliminator Boss 429 is a story whispered among collectors, a what-if muscle legend. Enthusiasts still fantasize about what could have been. The Cougar Boss 429 would have offered the perfect marriage. Mercury's slightly more upscale styling wrapped around Ford's wildest homologation engine. Owners would have enjoyed both straight-line fury and a touch of refinement, something Mustang buyers didn't get. That combination could have given Mercury a halo car to rival Plymouth's Hemi Cuda or Dodge's Challenger RT. Collectors treat even the rumor of these cars as treasure. When a prototype surfaces, it's valued not just as metal, but as mythology. The Boss 429 Cougar reminds us how corporate politics and brand positioning sometimes killed greatness before it hit the streets. And as Mercury's ultimate forbidden fruit, it set the stage for Ford's long tradition of radical prototypes that were built, tested, and then banished to history. Top 2, 1989 Ford Probe GT AWD Turbo Prototype. By the late 1980 SES, Ford was looking toward the future, smaller, turbocharged, all-wheel drive machines that could rival Japanese imports. At the center of this vision stood the 1989 Ford Probe GT AWD Turbo Prototype. Built on Mazda's GD platform but infused with Ford's design cues, it was no ordinary probe. Under the hood sat a turbocharged 2.2-liter inline-4, producing roughly 190 horsepower. But the real trick lay beneath. A full-time all-wheel drive system with a locking center differential. This was Ford experimenting with rally-inspired technology, hoping to compete with Subaru and Mitsubishi on the global stage. Test mules were said to reach 0-60 in under 7 seconds, and early development hinted at serious handling prowess. Yet, despite promising numbers, the AWD Turbo never entered production. Corporate leaders deemed it too expensive and feared it would cannibalize Mustang sales in North America. The project was shelved, and the prototypes were quietly scrapped. What enthusiasts loved about the idea was simple. It would have been Ford's answer to the turbocharged AWD performance cars that defined the late 80s and early 90s. Imagine a showroom car that could hang with an Eclipse GSX or a Subaru Legacy Turbo while wearing Ford's badge. The AWD Probe would have given Ford a foothold in a performance niche it ultimately abandoned. Today, the story of the AWD Probe GT survives as a tantalizing what-if, sparking endless bench racing debates about how it might have changed Ford's reputation in tuner culture. Collectors hunt for photos, engineering notes, or even scraps of these lost prototypes. And while this dream car was banned from showrooms, Ford wasn't done flirting with forbidden turbo projects. The next prototype pushed even deeper into experimental territory, an unlikely hot rod built from the humble EX. Top 3, 1982 Ford XB Turbo Prototype. In 1982, Ford launched the EXP, a two-seat commuter car meant to echo the sporty style of the Mustang while offering efficiency in the age of fuel crises. Most people remember it as modest, economical, even a little underwhelming. But behind closed doors, engineers experimented with a radical twist. The EXP Turbo Prototype. Instead of the base 1.6-liter four-cylinder wheezing out just 70 horsepower, this prototype was fitted with a turbocharged version, pushing nearly 120 horsepower. Light and compact, the the boosted EXP suddenly transformed from Econobox to Pocket Rocket. Testing suggested it could sprint to 60 mph in the low 9-second range. Hardly a supercar, but a massive leap for a commuter Ford. Paired with upgraded suspension and lightweight body tweaks, the EXP Turbo hinted that Ford was exploring an American answer to Volkswagen's hot hatch movement. Yet, management pulled the plug. The project was deemed too risky for a market still obsessed with economy and not quite ready to embrace turbocharged compacts. Only a few prototypes were ever completed, vanishing quietly into Ford's archives. Enthusiasts love this story because it proves Ford had the vision to create something ahead of its time. Imagine an affordable, American-built turbo two-seater battling GTIs and CRXs on the street in the early 80s. It would have redefined Ford's image among young drivers, cementing the EXP as more than just a Mustang-like commuter. Collectors today view the EXP Turbo as a fascinating lost chapter, a car that could have seeded Ford's entry into the performance compact segment a full decade before the SVT Focus. It represents not just what Ford built, but what Ford chose not to unleash. And while this prototype was buried, Ford's next forbidden car project wasn't about commuters at all. It was about taking an international racing legend, the GT40, and trying to sell it to the public. Top 4, 1965 Ford GT40 MCAD-1 Street version. The Ford GT40's racing dominance is legendary. 4 straight Le Mans victories from 1966 to 1969 cemented its place in motorsport history. But what many forget is that Ford briefly flirted with turning the GT40 M1 into a road-legal production car. In 1965, a handful of M1 chassis were fitted with mild interiors, quieter exhausts, and basic amenities to meet homologation requirements. These were dubbed street versions, intended to give wealthy buyers a chance to own a slice of Le Mans glory. Beneath the skin, though, the heart remained pure racer. A 289 cubic inch Hypo V8 producing around 380 horsepower coupled to a ZEF 5-speed transaxle. Capable of over 170 mph, the Street GT40 was essentially a race car with license plates. Only about 30 road-going IMIC 1S were ever built, making them vanishingly rare. Ford's corporate leadership soon realized the liability and impracticality of selling such a raw machine to the public, and the project quietly faded. The allure of the Street GT40 is obvious. It was a forbidden fantasy, a chance to drive a car that had humbled Ferrari on the world stage. Enthusiasts adored its uncompromising design, low, wide, and menacing, and the way it delivered racing thrills with zero filter. Collectors today treat surviving Street GT40s as crown jewels, with values soaring well into the multi-million-dollar range. They're prized not just for performance, but for the cultural impact, a car that symbolized Ford's boldest era, when racing victories were used as marketing weapons. The GT40 Street program ultimately died, but its ghost lingers as proof of how close Ford came to redefining the exotic car market. And if the GT40 showed what Ford could accomplish on racetracks, the next band creation proved they could also shake up the rally stages with a mid-engine monster called the RS200. Top 5, 1984 Ford RS200. By the mid-1980s, the world's rally scene was a playground for the insane. Group B regulations encouraged automakers to build mid-engined, turbocharged rockets, barely disguised as road cars. Ford's answer was the RS200, unveiled in 1984. Unlike the Escorts or Capris before it, the RS200 was a clean-sheet design. Lightweight fiberglass body panels, a steel space frame, and a mid-mount 1.8-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, producing 250 horsepower in road trim but over 500 horsepower in competition spec. With advanced all-wheel drive, it was engineered for maximum grip on gravel, tarmac, or snow. To satisfy homologation, Ford had to build 200 road-going examples, and they did. But the RS200 was doomed by timing. Group B's escalating danger forced the FIA to ban the category in 1986, just as Ford's car was beginning to show its potential. Overnight, the RS200 went from future champion to orphaned outlaw. Despite its short competitive life, the RS200 became a cult icon. Drivers admired its razor-sharp handling, explosive turbo lag, and sheer rawness. It wasn't a friendly car, it was a beast waiting to bite. But that edge made it unforgettable. Collectors today covet the RS200 not only for its rarity, but also for what it represents. The final, unhinged chapter of rally's most dangerous era. Even standard road models now sell for hundreds of thousands, while evolution versions are priceless. The RS200's cultural impact stretches beyond rally fans. It symbolizes a moment when engineers were given freedom to chase speed with no restraint, and the results were both brilliant and terrifying. Ford had built one of the most outrageous cars in its history, only to have it banned before it could truly shine. And if the RS200 was rally excess personified, Ford's next forbidden machine, the RS500 Sierra Cosworth, was designed to dominate touring cars but suffered its own battles with regulation. Top 6. 1985 Ford RS500 Sierra Cosworth. In 1985, Ford of Europe and Cosworth set out to create a touring car weapon, and the result was the Sierra Cosworth. Sleek, turbocharged, and menacing with its whale-tail spoiler, it was unlike any family sedan before. But the rarest of all was the RS500 Evolution model. Conceived to meet Group A racing rules, at its heart lay a 2-liter turbocharged YB engine, heavily reworked with stronger internals, larger turbo, and upgraded intercooler. In street trim, it produced 224 horsepower, already impressive, but in race configuration, output easily exceeded 500 horsepower. Ford built just 500 RS500s in 1987, making it a homologation special in the purest sense. On the track, the RS500 quickly became a legend, dominating European touring car championships and striking fear into BMW M3s and Holden Commodores. Yet not every market embraced it. Safety regulations and import restrictions kept the RS500 out of America, leaving enthusiasts to admire it from afar. The RS500's appeal lay in its dual personality. On one hand, it was a practical-looking sedan, something you could drive to the shops. On the other, it was a fire-breathing track monster that could outpace exotics on the right circuit. Drivers loved its boost surge, raw grip, and the unmistakable howl of its Cosworth-tuned four-cylinder. Today, surviving RS500s are blue-chip collectibles, commanding values well into six figures. They represent not only a golden age of touring car racing, but also Ford's ability to harness motorsport success for road credibility. For enthusiasts, it remains the forbidden fruit America never received, a car too wild, too focused, and ultimately too rare for mass release. And while the RS500 ruled Europe's circuits, Ford's next banned machine came from the opposite side of the globe. An Australian-built Falcon XB GT that roared with muscle car fury. Top 7. 1973 Ford Falcon XB GT. In 1973, Ford Australia unleashed one of the most aggressive muscle cars ever produced outside the US, the Falcon XB GT. With its long, swooping fastback lines, shaker hood scoop, and menacing stance, it looked every bit as intimidating as the American Mustangs it mirrored. Beneath the hood lay Ford's 351 cubic inch Cleveland V8, delivering 300 horsepower in GT trim with optional 4-speed manual and limited slip differential. The car became an instant icon down under, but in America it remained out of reach. Stricter emissions standards, safety regulations, and insurance crackdowns meant Ford never brought the XB GT stateside. In Australia, however, it was the king of the highway, capable of over 130 mph and revered for its balance of performance and rugged durability. The car's pop culture immortality came later, when a heavily modified XB GT became the Pursuit Special in George Miller's Mad Max, forever etching its outlaw image into cinema history. Enthusiasts love the Falcon XB GT because it represents what muscle cars could have been if unrestrained by American regulations. It was raw, loud, and unapologetic, yet reliable enough to survive the rough Australian outback. Owners prized its blend of brute power and practicality, making it both a weekend warrior and a daily driver. Collectors today covet original GTs, and values have skyrocketed thanks to their rarity outside Australia. The Mad Max connection only amplifies its cultural status, turning it into one of the most recognizable Ford muscle cars worldwide. For fans, the XB GT is more than a machine, it's a rebellion on wheels, a symbol of freedom that never got its chance in the US. And while the Falcon roared across Australian highways, Ford's European arm was crafting something smaller, sharper, and equally forbidden. The rally-bred Capri RS200 600. Top 8. 1971 Ford Capri RS200 600. By the early 1970s, Ford of Europe wanted a car that could rival BMW on the track while still selling in showrooms. Their answer was the Capri RS200 600, unveiled in 1971. Built in collaboration with Cologne's racing division, the RS2000 600 was a sharp departure from Ford's big American muscle cars. It carried a lightweight body, flared arches, and a specially tuned 2.6-liter Cologne V6 fed by Bosch mechanical fuel injection. Output was rated at 150 horsepower, respectable for the time, but in racing trim, the same engine pushed well beyond 300. To meet FIA rules, Ford built around 3,300 street versions, just enough for homologation. Each was fitted with alloy wheels, close-ratio gearbox, and uprated suspension, making it a nimble weapon on twisting European roads. On track, the RS2000 600 dominated the European Touring Car Championship in 1971 and 1972, proving that Ford could beat BMW at its own game. Yet the RS2000 600 never crossed into American dealerships, blocked by emissions laws, cost concerns, and Ford's belief that U.S. buyers wouldn't embrace a mini Mustang. Fans adored the RS2000 600 because it combined agility with racing pedigree. It wasn't about brute force straight-line speed, it was about precision handling, screaming revs, and the satisfaction of driving a car bred directly from motorsport. Owners valued its balance and exclusivity, making it a cult favorite among European enthusiasts. Today, the RS2000 600 is a prized collector's piece, celebrated as the genesis of the legendary Capri RS lineage. Its cultural footprint is immense. It showed that Ford's performance DNA wasn't confined to America's muscle machines, it extended globally, adapting to any battlefield. Though it was banned from U.S. showrooms, the Capri RS2000 600 stands as proof that Ford's most daring creations weren't always built for Detroit, but for a worldwide stage of speed, risk, and rebellion. The story of Ford's banned cars proves that some of the greatest legends are the ones we never got to drive. Built in secrecy, killed by rules or fear, these machines still fuel our imaginations and define Ford's boldness. Which one would you resurrect if you had the chance? Comment your choice below, and if you love uncovering these untold automotive secrets, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another story from Muscle Cars Revolution.